Hi guys, trying to understand Donald Trump's approach to anything can be difficult, but if you listen to those around the president, you get the strong impression that one of the goals of the tariffs was to isolate China. Slap a tax on imports from around the world to force countries to come to the table and use that pressure to disassociate them from the world's second largest economy. It's also possible that Trump believed that he would convince the EU to stop or reduce its trade with China through bullying. But that has backfired, and now it seems the plan is to paint an image of China as an unreliable partner. My ironic meter just exploded. Here too, Trump's sycophants even bring up the Catholic Church in an attempt to smear China. Pretty pathetic. Have a listen.
Fox News contributor and author of The 100-Year Marathon, Michael Pillsbury, joins us now. Michael, always great to have you on. So, first of all, what a difference a president makes. I've never seen China on the hot seat like this in a long time. Tell us what you're seeing and what you expect with this, potentially seeing China interfere with this EU trade deal, because it seems like that's the only way they can go.
Well, the Chinese want a much better deal with the Europeans than they have with us. I mean, they're still the main. China is still buying more Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and wants to have that relationship offset or balance their relationship with the United States. So what I think we see going on, Rachel, is the Chinese refusing to really give in yet to Mr. Trump. And President Trump has outlined two different kinds of deals he says are possible, Rachel. One is he simply puts on tariffs, let's say at 100%, across all sectors, and that's the trade deal, because China won't negotiate. The other idea he has is that China will negotiate, and many more things will be covered, probably including the old 2020 trade deal that was 90 pages long and had all kinds of conditions. So this, to me, this is still a very open, fluid situation, and President Trump seems to be conveying that he's waiting for a better deal with both the European Union and China at the same time.
It is like a game of chicken, though, right? With between Xi and Trump. I never bet against Trump, but
you don't bet against Trump. He's already blinked a number of times. The Chinese president, in a sense, has just sat back and allowed the United States to implode. Yes, they have responded. China has responded by imposing tariffs of its own, but the whole point was. And this is information that's coming out of the White House, coming out of the Trump administration. What they wanted was for the Chinese president to get on the phone to Trump, not to respond. They had actually instructed China, don't respond with tariffs, get on the phone, because we want to show Donald Trump to be powerful. And the Chinese said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to flatter Donald Trump. We're not going to kiss his backside. You don't understand China. You don't understand the Chinese Communist Party. If you wanted the Chinese president to go running to Donald Trump.
There is concern that as the effects of the tariffs start to
Yes.
take effect and prices surge, do you think that will move Trump? How do you think Xi will take advantage of that? And I guess, do Americans really need all those cheap goods from China?
Oh my goodness. You don't have a manufacturing base. You don't have a significant manufacturing base. That's why you're relying on so much imports from China. Do we need all these cheap things from? It's not just cheap things, it's fundamental things. iPhones are not cheap. So the whole narrative here is, look, we're buying all this cheap plastic crap from China. Do we need to do that? Why can't we just make it ourselves? And that's a false narrative, because there is a lot of cheap stuff coming in, but there's a lot of expensive stuff coming in as well. And it's extremely difficult. Apple, or people within Apple or people around Apple, have said that it would take about 10 years and cost billions of dollars to relocate the construction of the factories and the production and the research and development and everything like that from China to the United States. So that's a non-starter.
You know, part of the problem with Chinese trade talks is enforcement. Even if they sign a good deal, I think President Trump is very alert to the idea of Chinese cheating on an agreement. And says,
once again, isn't it ironic that people are suggesting, we can't trust China. The reason why countries around the world are running to China is because they can't trust Donald Trump. The EU, Canada, and countries in Asia are looking towards China because they realize, look, we can't work with Donald Trump. Because even if we do sign a deal, even if we go there and we kiss his backside, there's no guarantee that he will remove the tariffs. There's no guarantee that he will provide us a favorable agreement. There's no guarantee of that. So what is the point? Is China reliable? No, it's not reliable. But it's more reliable than the United States is at the moment. The Trump supporters, the people at Fox News, don't seem to understand that.
Since it's Easter, I think I should tell you the same problem is facing the Vatican. They've had this deal since 2018 that the Pope will have the major role in picking bishops in China. It's about 10 or 15 bishops at stake. And the CCP, as of course, is all atheist. They are not abiding by the agreement the Pope reached with them. So now what to do? At stake is whether or not the bishops in China actually can conduct sacraments and other things as part of being a bishop. So the Vatican is learning a tough lesson now that they got a 4-year continuation of their deal, but there is Chinese cheating on the selection of bishops.
Okay, look, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But that's irrelevant to the discussions we're talking about. I keep saying, and I said it before, is China a reliable partner? It's more reliable than the United States, and that's all it has to be. Does China influence industries within China? Does it prop up these companies? Does it pump huge amounts of money, maybe against the rules, into its economy? Yes, it does. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about two main economies in the world, the first one and the second one. And the first one, the United States, is no longer someone we can do deals with. It's no longer. It used to be the case that the United States would generally follow the rules. Like no country, look at the history of the World Trade Organization. Pretty much no country are respecting all of the rules. But you don't say, well, let's ignore China because, well, we don't like some of the things it does. We have to work with countries around the world. We have to try and do our best. But at the moment, the United States is not somebody we can deal with because Donald Trump has proven that he's not somebody who can be reliable. He's not a reliable partner. He's picking fights with friends and enemies alike.
Whether they're qualified or not.
Well, listen, I mean, Michael, there has been an underground Chinese church for a long time, as you know. Those are the true Catholics in China. And the Vatican, frankly, I mean, I say this as a Catholic, as a faithful Catholic, it's been embarrassing the way they've been in bed with the Chinese government, with the communists, and believe.
Let's not go down the road of history with the Vatican and certain regimes. Okay, but this is completely irrelevant to the discussion of trade.
You could say it's naive that they believe that the Chinese were acting fairly, but I don't believe that at all. And they haven't come to the defense of the bishop, the underground bishop there, or the underground Catholics who have been, frankly, persecuted.
That's exactly right. And obviously trade and the tariffs is one issue totally separate from the selection of bishops and whether the Vatican's agreements are being honored. But it's another example to us.
Yes.
When you negotiate with China, it's not just the negotiations and the deal. It's making them honor it. And that's why one of the challenges President Trump faces now, and I know he's up to it, is whatever happened to the 90-page deal back in January 15th, 2020, that should really be enforced. It shouldn't just be forgotten and let them get away with it. I'm afraid the Vatican is doing what you say. It's being way too soft on China, and the so-called underground Christians are... Okay,
the Vatican has no leverage over China, okay? Look, these people are sycophants of Donald Trump. Donald Trump can deal with China. What has he done? How has he diverted trade away from China? How has he encouraged countries around the world to avoid dealing with China? No, he's pushed them into the arms of China. Once again, I keep saying this is very important. China is not an honest partner, but it's a more honest partner at the moment than the United States. So if your choice is, okay, do we want a partner who's not all that reliable but stable, that we know what we get when we deal with them, or do we want a partner who's completely erratic? We don't know if they're going to impose tariffs one day from the next. One is talking about going backwards, while the other is talking about going forwards. Who do you deal with there? When you're a business, you don't say, well, I like the opinions of this customer or this supplier. No, you work with the most reliable and sane partner you can. And at the moment, the United States is not sane or not reliable. So, of course, countries are going to look elsewhere. They're going to look towards China, they're going to look towards the EU and other countries around the world that they see as more reliable than the United States. Things may change in the future when Donald Trump is no longer president, when a new administration comes in and they try to rebuild after the massive destruction that has taken place. That's going to take time. But the reputation of the US will be rebuilt. But at the moment, it's understandable that businesses and countries around the world want to deal less with the United States. And trying to sell this idea that Donald Trump knows what he's doing or is in charge of his approach is for the birds.